Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this 60th episode of Startup Talks. Today I'm joined by somebody very special topic that I'm actually still learning about internet and artificial intelligence and the link with digital economy, especially in emerging markets like Pakistan. So I'm here with Sophia Hasnain. She's the founder and CEO of LinkThings. LinkThings is, from what I know, is the only end-to-end service provider for IoT-enabled services, and she has previously been associated with the telco sector, been involved with the strategy for Easy Pesa, and been through lived in Germany as well, involved in the telco sector there as well as a product manager too, and also has a BS in electrical engineering from NED University and University of Michigan with an MS. Assalamu alaikum, Sophia. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing?
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me. I'm having a good day during Ramzan.
Okay, that's great. Well, it's रमज़ान में थोड़ा बहुत डिफिकल्ट होता है मेरे लिए तो हो रहा है अभी से मुंह खुश्क हो रहा है मेरा तो I hope you are more energetic
No,
than
I
I am.
actually like Ramzan.
Uh-huh. Okay. अच्छा, you're more active
No,
in
no,
it?
no. Actually like Ramzan because we start very early.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, okay, so we start really early in Ramzan. So I really like it, and we wrap up by by 1 o'clock or 1:30. Then everybody is away, and then I also get 3 4 hours to think through the whole day and plan for the next. So I really like Ramzan timings.
चलें, that's
I wish we can start like at 7 a.m. every day, but nobody wants to do that.
my day is actually already up. All right, this is my last appointment for the day with you. Right.
Wow.
After Zohar, I have to catch up on a short nap. All right, people take a nap for a couple of minutes. Mine is going to last for at least 2 3 hours. Right. So
Wow.
that's my day. अच्छा, चले तो Sophia. We'll touch upon Internet of Things and AI and linked things, but wha- what got you into the space first of all?
Okay, so I mean, we'll have to go back 30 years when I started NED University, and was just not my first choice to go there because I wanted to do something else. But when I started doing that, I didn't enjoy, and I had, as in those days, marks to get into NED, so I got into NED. And even there, I was not much interested in the, like people talk about that technology is booming and we should be doing that and this and that. But I actually very early on met someone who has inspired me all my life, and that is Mr. Samir Hoodboy. He runs a company called Data Communications and Controls, which he has been running since 80s, and he's a maverick guy. I believe I started working with him, and that's where I learned that technology has a purpose. So you don't do things in life, or you don't build things because engineers are supposed to build things just for the sake of building, or just for getting into, a lot of us who graduate typically take up jobs to just fill the time, or just learn new technology, but we're not learning to use that technology for the benefit. And that's what I learned. And from then onwards, I got interested in, like, things, how, and whenever I looked at a problem, I tried to solve it from technology perspective. So and working with him over there, I also developed interest in more on the hardware side, as opposed to people working on the software side. In those days, people opted for a lot of database jobs and all that. So with that kind of a background, I opted for hardware side, and then I also went to do my master's in digital signal processing, which was also something not many people from Pakistan were knowing doing. So like people were like, okay, we'll go and we'll do masters in computer science, and we'll be coding our lives, but all through our lives. But I was like, let's try something, learn something. If I'm getting an opportunity to go and study abroad, I should pick up something which people consider a difficult or a tough area, but let's try that. So I went and I did digital signal processing. Not many people from Pakistan have done that or were doing it at that time. Um, Again, that brought a lot of mathematics and hardware exposure to me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I came back because there was boom all over the world. I had job offers like everybody gets it when you graduate in the US. But I thought that would be good if I try my luck in Pakistan. So I came back. Obviously, here there weren't that many opportunities, but I was doing some hardware projects on the side. I also did some projects as a freelancer for some outside companies, and I was also teaching full time. So I thought that would be best. But then, how technology, how the career progresses in Pakistan is not based on what you want to do, but whatever kind of opportunity lands in your
Yeah.
lab. So I started working with WaveTech, which is again hardware, and I was managing their R&D team for some time. Then I also progressed to do another IT project. So like, from hardware to IT, but I was like, the back of the mind was like, we have to do something with the knowledge that I have, with the technology that I know. Let's deliver something which has a greater impact. So with that in mind, I always got projects that were very interesting. So in 2005, somebody came up with an idea of an online service, and we had set up 5,000 POS terminals in the shops using GPRS. At that time, there was only another company that had about 600, 700 POSs, and they were all on landline. And if you remember, in 2005, they used to unplug and plug the cables and get on their phone line and then dial the number and then connect to the credit card and all that. We did it on GPRS, so 5,000. So with that, I also got into the Telenor strategy team. I worked on Easy Pesa strategy. It wasn't called Easy Pesa, it was Mobile Financial Services project at that time. And again, not many people were willing to touch that. Like, there's this thing that this is not something that is going to help us in our career, or it's not uh, not mainstream. So, but I always got interested in something that has impact and is probably not mainstream. So with that, went to Germany, also worked with Deutsche Telekom as product manager, came back and wanted to actually, I mean, I learned a lot. The first thing I learned, I think, in Germany was that there is a process. So you cannot bypass a process. If you have decided that you will do this work in 10 steps, it has to pass through those 10 steps, and no matter what, you cannot skip it. And that actually assures the quality of that whole thing. I learned a lot about how to build quality products, how to actually manage the teams, how to manage your time, how to do work-life balance. I mean, that's a phenomenal country if you want to, live live and practice good values. So I really enjoyed living there. I came back for family reasons again. And then I started talking to people about agile and design thinking in 2012 and 13, and nobody believed me. So like I went from one software house to other and telling them that, let's do agile development here. And they said, no, we don't do. We are happy with our waterfall. And today, I think all software houses are doing agile. So and there are people that I meet and they recognize me with this whole thing that I was talking about, only agile at those days, like, and they said we cannot change our organization, and this, what will we do with this role and that role? So, but then I also got an opportunity with GSMA that I could work from home, from Pakistan, stay here, and then look at the global market, specifically Asia, from Afghanistan to Philippines, looking at mobile financial services. I used to travel a lot. So I had this whole region, like all what we call emerging markets or global south. And I was traveling, and at that time also this whole IoT boom started. Like people started talking about IoT. The whole it became a lot more attractive name compared to M2M, what it was labeled machine to machine to IoT, new label. Everybody talking about how it's going to revolutionize everything.
Yeah.
And when I started reading about it and following up on that, I realized that the countries that I'm going to, be that Philippines or be that Brazil, Kenya, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, India, whatever country you pick up, we've got similar challenges which are very, very different than developed market challenges. So in developed markets, there is excess of capital, both like access, like you have access to it, and
Yeah.
there is abundant capital that you can actually um, deploy and change your machinery if you want to. For example, even there is no concept of reusing it or reappropriating anything over there. There's just like, okay, new technology, let's adopt it, let's take it, you start using it, invest in it, and take it forward. So that the whole approach actually always gives them some advantage over all of us. Here, our industries, if we look at Pakistan or any other, we have got machinery which is 20 years old. In some places, there's plants that were established in 50 years ago, and they are running, and then they are happy, right? And how do you bring them to this stage where you can start extracting data to implement IoT? Because they're never going to invest. The reason they are still living on something that they invested in 20 years ago is because they don't have that kind of luxury to, or that kind of profits to invest back in their setup. So if they don't invest back, they're not going to invest in new technology which comes with these kind of new machines, and they're going to lag behind. Because this is, if you're talking about revolution, a lot of things would change. There will be new regulations coming in from our buyers. There will be new requirements. So you just get pushed down and down and down. So we said, okay, let's look at this. And in 2016, we started Link Things. At that time, we were not just looking at manufacturing, but just looking at how we will make sure that IoT, as everybody is talking about, can be done in Pakistan. So with my embedded background, I started looking at hardware first. I say, because there were also some ideas, as I told you. I started working with Samir Saab at DCC, and we were always talking about like how technology can impact a lot of things. So the use cases like flood monitoring, use cases like energy monitoring, measuring energy, bringing efficiencies. All these ideas were discussed, but we just couldn't do it because technology wasn't ready. So the processing power that is available to us compared to 20 times has actually increased, I would say, a million times, right? The batteries are available. Internet connectivity has improved. We're not spending a lot of time on creating some complicated network structures, but we are saying, okay, like just connect this device to internet and we'll take care of it in the back end. So I started looking at these, and then we were very successful. I mean, I was really pleasantly surprised in the first 3 weeks what we could do compared to what we couldn't do in 3 months 20 years ago, or so, and actually execute it. And that's what I really liked about, like having something in your hand. And I think I like hardware because it's touchable and you can show off that okay, this is what I built. Um, so and then we said, okay, let's start. So we also got first customer to do energy meters for them. They had some specific requirement which they couldn't find in the market at that time. So we did it like about reading out 500 readings in a second, and we said, okay, let's try. We did it, and I really didn't have any hi-fi engineers, but just qualified engineers who had interest in it. So I always feel that if somebody has interest, they can do whatever they want to. So we got that, we did that for them, but then we didn't have any backend. So we were just sending the data to their backend. So that led to, okay, let's start looking at the backend, and we looked at the technologies and all that. So the reason we are now end to end is that we take care of everything. So hardware, and all the way to software, the backend platform, the front end apps, dashboard, and also doing analytics. So yeah, that's been the journey.
Chale, that's great. I was
Long
going
one.
to. No, it's fine. It's actually good. I'm sure you must have missed out quite a bit there. Being the only woman in Pakistan to be venturing into such a space, the only company led by a woman, right? So this makes it actually very gives it a very special spot there. in within digital or IT related businesses in Pakistan. I was looking at your website. I came across one caption. Right, people normally use such things for marketing purposes, but I said I will ask this question. Uh, there's a caption there on one of the pages that by 2022, LinkedIn aims to connect 1 million devices. Have you done that, or has it done that? Not yet.
No, actually, we haven't done it, and
Sorry,
we have
sorry,
actually
sorry,
pushed it.
sorry, sorry, sorry. There's another question linked to it. Right? There was a catch to it. You s- w- in your previous explanation, right? You said a lot of things have changed. A lot of things were we couldn't do 20 years before, but we can do them now, right? This is the question I'm trying to address here is more of like because for uh, people not only in Pakistan in emerging markets, right? Because there's lack of education and all. Uh, IoT is more about controlling your television with your smartphone or your air conditioner with your smartphone, right? So, from what I feel, there is a lack of knowledge, though there may be availability of resources and hardware, internet, and everything. What do you have to say about that?
So yeah, I think that's smart home is one of the largest markets. So like, controlling your ACs and your TVs is definitely a larger market, and there are a lot of players in it.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I think value of a company like ours doesn't come in.
Uh-huh.
But there are many people who are familiar when we talk about technology coming in and revolutionizing thing, but I think technology comes in bits and pieces, and people accept and reject it. So the same goes for AI kind of thing as well. People just get scared with the whole word AI without realizing that a lot of AI is something that we use, and there are a lot of technology based product that people just reject, right? If they're not very comfortable. So smartphones is the largest, I think, one of the largest use cases and in the market, and people are quite familiar with it. There are some challenges in it again because there are a lot of players. So uh, manufacturers have also started providing you with this ability to have an app for your Samsung phone, or have your app for example, in Pakistan, Orient was doing it. But how many apps can you have on your phone?
Yeah.
So that the whole aggregator space is also missing. Like we've talked about smart gates. People have an app for their gate. People have an app for their light. But then they also have another app for ACs. And if you've got five ACs, you might have five different apps. So that kind of aggregation is not possible. So the user, nobody's building the whole thing from user perspective. There are few companies that come in on top of it where you can actually integrate a lot of hardware. But again, I think consumer space is different than the business space. And in consumer, the selling point is generally about convenience and luxury rather than value creation. So there, I think that market is a little different, but it is growing, I think, globally and in Pakistan as well.
uh, in Pakistan, especially, there is not much of a talk about these things about IoT and AI. But however, there's a lot of talk about, especially after the pandemic, about cloud technology, and that is actually everything is dependent on that, right? Especially for data and everything. Uh,
Yes.
and for us, digitization is more about, like you said, about having an app to do something, even in the financial sector. Uh, Digitization is about being able to pay your bill online, right? There's nothing beyond that. So, to put things into perspective for a layman like myself, what are the possibilities? This is a very broad question, will probably cover lots of areas because in a country like Pakistan, there's an umpteenth amount of opportunity with when we talk about IoT and AI and implementation and process automation and all of those things, right? And there was a bit of a hype some time back around machine learning, but that also died down. I don't know why, right? But it's all linked together. So, what do you think are the possibilities there?
To understand the nexus between IoT and AI, let's just look IoT and AI a little bit separately, and then we see where they merge. So IoT is a technology that can actually connect um, physical space with cyberspace. So it is connecting whatever is happening in physical space, such as, for example, if I'm talking about from smart home perspective, which is a very good example of IoT, and people understand this as well, that if I want to, for example, see my windows are closed, or my door is closed, or my fan is running, or is there lights are on, or I want to control air conditioner or fan or lights, I deploy certain sensors. Um, in When I don't have any sensor, I have to actually physically move them or physically switch on and off the lights. But once I have connected them through sensors, I can actually now get the data anywhere and control them, or get the information from those sensors anywhere in the world. So what I have done is that I have connected um, the physical space with cyberspace. Now, what else is happening in addition to that is that I start to get a lot of data. This data is also very important because it represents the behavior. So if again I take the example of smart home, um, begin to get the data of, for example, when a particular light is switched on, what is the temperature that I like in my room as opposed to what is the temperature that you like in your room. So I get to start to get the behavioral data as well of people, right? The same example I can also apply in the industrial settings where we work, and that is that all these machines that are lying on the floor and performing and functioning very well, they also generate a lot of data, and some of that data is recorded manually, some of their data is let go and people do not utilize that data. For example, if a production line is producing certain number of units, the count is typically recorded, and sometimes the failures are also recorded, but they are not recorded very accurately because all the record keeping is manual. So if machine fails because of a certain part, or if a part of the machine gets heated up, these kinds of granularity of the data, and for how long the machine suffered the downtime, and what happened before that and what happened after that, are typically not registered in a manual or in non-IoT system. And even in SCADA systems, these kind of things are not recorded to this kind of granularity. Um, but once we start to get the data through IoT sensors and put them on the cloud, we can analyze them very differently. We can see, okay, failure A happened quite so often, and that can also generate another alert for the maintenance staff to look into that part. They can also compare one part to the other. They can also calculate the efficiencies of their machines. They can also identify next failure, which actually reduces the mean time between failures, or actually increases the mean time between failures. And and perhaps if we know that this particular uh, machine part is going to break down, then we can also get the replacement in place, and that actually reduces the mean time to repair the function. So these are the things, like all the information that exists, and even more so because now we have the capability to get the data without human interaction. We can get this and put it on a platform. Now what is AI doing? So AI, artificial intelligence, a lot of people um use it in different contexts, but for example, it is used a lot more in finance and retail because there's a lot of data. So what does AI do? AI is basically getting a lot of data and processing it to predict certain outcomes of the situation that we are. So for example, ride hailing companies also use some AIs to predict where the next ride is going to come, and they can also place their riders over there, or food ordering companies can also use it and so on. But what if we come back to the IoT related, so we IoT is generating a lot of data, and AI has the capability to process it. So AI can actually, now that the dimensions of data are huge, it can actually look into data and identify next failures, predict maintenance requirements, or it can also identify how to improve the efficiencies. So in a normal way, you calculate your efficiencies, but it can also look at the data and tell you, how to improve your efficiencies. It can also look at the data and identify the product quality issues, which we are also doing right now in the market, that we look at the behavior of the machine and identify the quality. So so the AI is basically taking all the data, crunching that information, and coming up with information that is actionable and provides insights to management as well as maintenance staff. So globally, there has been a lot of hype around IoT. They have also bundled this IoT into the whole industry 4.0 revolution technologies. So there is IoT, big data, machine learning along with that, and then robotics and 3D printing. These are the things that people have been predicting are going to actually revolutionize manufacturing, and they are to an extent. This hype actually started in 2014, and a lot of people have been talking about connecting 50 billion devices by 2020. And when we started in 2016, we were also like quite enthusiastic, and we said, okay, by that time, maybe we can do a million in Pakistan. Um, but this is actually growing not that rapidly uh, because of a couple of reasons. The first is that IoT itself is quite complicated. So it is, as everybody says, IT and OT integration. So it's got hardware as well, and it has got network dependency, and then there are platforms and AI and all that you can do with that, dashboards, and in all these different silos, there are incumbent players as well as there are players that are entering from the adjacent silos to actually catch their customers or retain their customers along the value chain of IoT. So that is actually creating a lot of competition. And for someone to actually think about adopting IoT, it just gets too complicated. So, people are abandoning the projects, people are not taking up, people are not able to realize the ROI. So there are a lot of, and this is happening globally as well. It's not just, I would say, Pakistan or emerging markets specific. If we look at those challenges and then we couple that with them with the the realities of emerging markets, which are the infrastructural issues. We don't have reliable power, the internet is always not available, and then also we don't have the capital to invest and try and retry. The human resources are also not uh, capable enough or do not have enough resources around them to actually execute a successful project. So, a lot of projects are not being able to meet their KPIs. But on the other hand, everybody has bought in the promise of IoT. The machine, if we look at, for example, home automation sector, even there, Amazon has got into this, Google has got into this with their own product line. There are Chinese products, so everybody is bringing it in, and people are adopting it gradually. So people are not adopting it still with a big bang, but they are doing it gradually, even in smaller home automation projects as well. If we look at, for example, the industrial space. So they are big manufacturers as well as big system integrators are getting into this in globally. They are getting into this space globally and they are executing bigger projects. Um, and the hope is that this would trickle down and this has to come down to emerging markets as well. And we will be actually ready to execute all those projects in emerging markets. So that's our goal, to be ready to actually do projects, to roll out, to bring benefits to the to our industry, to be ready to adopt industrial IoT in a big way. So as I just said, that there are challenges in adoption of industrial IoT or IoT generally globally. The challenges compound when we come to Pakistan because of our infrastructural issues, our capacity issues, the fact that we are very, very risk averse. We do not want to invest um, in new technology unless it there is a very, very clear benefit. And another problem with IoT is that who actually owns the benefit. So like unless companies have taken solid digital transformation initiatives and have decided to digitize their manufacturing and get the data and start and have organized their organizations in a way that they can actually use that data that is coming out, it just doesn't happen. So just bringing IoT at this moment is um, it can be a little bit more overwhelming for the existing staff. So when we do the project, we always also consult and tell our customers that they need to look at how they can actually reorganize and in the form that they can actually use this existing data, or the new incoming data actually, in a much better way and effective way and get the benefits out of it. So IoT, I say, is part of the digital transformation, has to happen. It will happen. We know that sooner or later this will be implemented. It could either be regulatory, it could be buyer's choice, it could be your own profitability oriented decision. But this will happen, and Pakistani businesses are understanding this as well, especially after COVID, globally as well as in Pakistan, there is a lot more awareness about these kind of latest technologies, which help manufacturing sector in being transparent, able to generate a lot of data and insights from the manufacturing side, reducing the maintenance requirements, calculating the efficiencies, and so on. So there is awareness, and a lot of customers are also approaching us. We need to look at it holistically from the digital transformation perspective as well, and also look at at small scale as well to try out and see what benefits the businesses could achieve. In this regards, I think companies like us also come in handy because we are there to provide complete hand-holding in digital transformation and industrial IoT implementation, and customers get the full service from us. From not just from hardware to software integration and getting the data, dashboard, AI, but also support in digital transformation. We started looking at again in IoT challenges, implementation challenges, and our first product was energy meters and energy analyzers. This is a product that we still sell. That the product actually you can deploy at home, offices, industrial machines, and we start to get the data. We have capability to get up to 500 data points per second, which gives us a very good electrical signature. So we have the capability to look at electrical signatures, analyze electrical signatures through our own meters, and predict machine behavior or appliance behavior, um, or identify faults in them through energy analysis. We also use the same technique for quality monitoring. So this is what we have done on the energy industrial side. We on the industrial side, in addition to this, we also do efficiency calculations. We do line utilization and global efficiency and overall equipment effectiveness calculations. We also do predictive maintenance. We also do supply chain projects on the industrial space. Um, Water metering, in addition to energy metering, and also one more important use case that we deliver is the cost per unit produced calculations, including that includes all the utilities that have been utilized, and you can actually price your product according to the cost. um, the other thing that we do is in the domain of smart cities. Here we have done two major projects. One is in the space of air quality monitoring. We are running air quality monitoring network in Karachi, Lahore, and Peshawar. In Karachi, we have been running it for more than 2 years, and we have valuable data that you can actually use to predict air quality for the next few hours, few days, and you can also look at the patterns. You can also identify the causes of poor air quality in areas. You can also identify the timings. So you can do spatial and temporal analysis of the data and get the information, valuable information that can be used for citizen advisories. This data is public for Karachi, and customers can go, or the citizens can go and have a look at this our website. They will find it. Another thing that we have done is the energy monitoring of green line stations. So green line is the new project in Karachi where 20 to 23 stations have been operational, and we monitor the energy um, consumption of these stations to identify basically whether grid is available, not available, whether it's running on genset, how much fuel is being consumed, which appliances are working, which are not working. So looking at complete operations just by monitoring energy there. Then so smart manufacturing, smart industries. We have also previously done agricultural products as well, and also in irrigation space. So in irrigation space, our units are deployed on River Indus at Guddu, Sakhar, and Kotri, and we are getting live data, flood level data from those stations continuously. Every 15 minutes, we are getting the data. And it's quite interesting to see. Again, this has been operational since almost 3 years, and we can see the seasonal behaviors. We can see month by month behavior. We can also look at annual behavior of river index flood levels at these 3 points. In the smart agriculture area, we have the capacity to monitor soil and weather stations and get the data like soil data, soil moisture, soil temperature, and get one picture for the farmer on what is the state of their farm at this point. So we do that. The fourth area is in the domain of smart buildings, smart homes, smart offices. These are also some of the projects that we have done in this space. I think interesting aspect of these projects is not just the controlling of your home appliances, which is a typical smart home or smart office concept, but looking at the uh, behavior, uh, extracting behavioral insights of the users, consumers, residents, office workers, whoever you want to track, and also predict and then set the scene according to the user expectations or user behavior. In future, we would be focusing more on smart manufacturing and in smart cities. We think that these areas are very important for the economy, as we have also seen during COVID that you could actually, as a business, you could move everyone from from office to work from home mode, but you cannot actually move the whole manufacturing to home. So this is where I think we add a lot of value. We work in this space with a lot of manufacturers in Pakistan with big names, and we have delivered many projects where they get and develop the insights. Similarly, I think smart cities is much needed space as the urbanization happens and grows. and the urban population grows, we feel that the city administrations will not be able to um, execute or run the city appropriately or efficiently, and that's where a lot of IoT technologies would come in. And like if we want to do water demand and supply analysis, energy demand and supply analysis, um, controls on both water and electricity, and managing the distribution is something that I think where IoT can help a lot. We are already doing air quality monitoring, so this actually supports the smart city initiative that we work on. Then there are other use cases like street light monitoring, waste management, parking lot management. So we've got solutions for all of this, and we would like to do this. We are also looking at expanding outside Pakistan because we have the platform that is created for all emerging markets. We understand, I think our biggest benefit is that we understand the challenges of emerging markets, and we also understand how to overcome them using technologies. The biggest advantage of LinkThings is that we uh, cover the whole IoT space. So from hardware all the way to AI, and in between, networks, dashboards, platform, AI, installation, after sales service. So we provide one window opportunity to our customers to come and experience and then roll out bigger projects on IoT. So we will continue to do that here in Pakistan and abroad as well. Okay, a lot of people ask me this, that, being a woman, what advice do I have for other women, especially young women? I So I'm quite hopeful. I look at young women, and even women generally in my age group or slightly younger women, and even older women. Um, I think women have been active professionally for quite some time. I always tell this example that, and people generally do not know that, when computers were introduced in Pakistan, in Pakistani banks, and I'm talking about early 70s, they were mainframe computers. And I can tell you that IBM trained a lot of women to become mainframe operators. So they actually were the early adopters of technology, because men typically do not venture into risk-based uh, career options. And in those days, everybody was very bit iffy um, about technology and adoption of technology. So there were a lot of women who got trained on IBM mainframes, and they continue to use them. I personally know and have met women who were trained in the early 70s. And you would also be surprised that in its heydays, the IT manager at Pakistan Steel Mill was also a woman. So I don't think so that women have been, not venturing in this space. I think what they don't get is the recognition. So my advice is for men in this space, and generally for men, to give space to women, acknowledge their contribution, um, praise them, appreciate them, give them space to grow, because we all have women employees, and because of our upbringing, we may not be as outgoing or may not be as bullish about our careers. Like in expression, I think we all women work very hard and deliver. They've been doing tremendous job, as I said, especially in the tech area since the 1970s. It's been 50 years that women have been doing this, and I don't know why men continue to ignore women's work or do not acknowledge it. But this is also, so my advice is not for women at all. Keep doing what you're doing, but for men, the advice is to recognize women's contribution, to acknowledge them, to appreciate them, to give them space to grow. So, uh, yeah, and also realize that, I think one important thing that men need to realize is that that we have dual responsibility as homemakers, as well as professional women, and we may have certain challenges to adhere to standards of work that men have set for themselves. So So yeah, that that means that they have to actually show some flexibility in this whole space and allow women to grow. So women are doing whatever they're doing fine, and I have no advice for them, but advice is for the